Well, good day to you. It is August the 26th, and I hope wherever you are doing super fantastic fine. My name is Gary Willing, and I want to welcome everyone to Search for Signs, and I know it's been a while since I put one of these videos up. And I've been kind of just focusing on the Master Speaks articles, and hopefully you find those articles that I've been reading to you enlightening, full of truth and wisdom. They're not coming from me. I am simply reading them from a Master Speaks Volume 1, and then once I'm done with all those, I'll read from a Master Speaks Volume 2. But here's the thing. You don't have to listen to me read it to you. You know, you can actually do it yourself. You can go to the Share International site. The link is in the description. There are some of those articles, not all of them, but there's some of those articles in there, and you can read it and get a better sense, perhaps, than you could by me reading it to you. So I always encourage everyone to check out those links, especially the Share International site. I'm not an official spokesperson for Share International. You know, I'm not their spokesperson, but perhaps I'm an unofficial spokesperson for them because I keep telling everybody to go to their site. But that site is excellent for getting background information, to see if there's any truth to this information, for reading these articles for yourself, and even reading letters that people wrote in who claim to have met Maitreya in their own life in some way. So you can learn a lot that way, see if there's any truth to this information. Now, if you want to ask a question, you want to post comments, of course, you can just post a comment and let me know what you think. But if you want to ask a question, I'll try to answer it in the next video. The best way to get the question to me is to post your question in the comments section, or you can email me at searchforsigns@mail.com. Now, Young Knowledge Seeker asked some wonderful questions and made some great comments, and I wanted to kind of dive into this because it's, like I said, it's been a while since I took the time to put one of these videos up, and when I get questions, I always like to I chomp at the bit to answer them. So what did this person ask? Is it possible these are biblical demons or angels? It's clear some beings exist, but are they really simply friendly ET? This idea that they don't interfere with free will seems fragile to me. It just seems like plain secrecy, not benevolent respect of free will. I'll feel like an idiot if I'm slandering truly good beings, but there is simply good reason and evidence to believe that Benjamin Creme is simply channeling biblical nefarious beings, simply tricking him and us into accepting them in a form we would entertain, namely benevolent ET space brothers here to help us. Only secretive for so long because they are just so good and respectful, and are here to make sure we don't believe Jesus is anything particularly special. He's just a regular guy who achieved a certain consciousness like we all can. Joe Jordan from MUFON has concluded that the phenomenon is simply demonic from the data as well. Michael Heiser, an amateur researcher, has also concluded the same. Well, anyway, first of all, Young Knowledge Seeker, I really appreciate your comment and your questions, and you seem like a good-hearted person, and especially when you said something, well, you'd feel bad if you were slandering somebody that's a truly good person. Now, I want to talk about what your comment about Jesus. You said, here to make us believe Jesus is anything particularly special. He's just a regular guy who achieved a certain consciousness like we all can. Okay, now, I've never said that Jesus, even when he was in Palestine as Jesus, was anything particularly ordinary. I thought he was particularly special. In fact, he was so special, he was the first of our humanity to manifest perfect love in its perfection, just as Gautama Buddha manifested perfect wisdom in its perfection. Now, I have a different take on religion. I have a different take on the Bible. I don't believe the Bible is the gospel truth of anything. I do think that there are truths in the Bible, but I have to do the work. I have to look in there and filter through all the distortion, all the things that were put in there by just ordinary people throughout the years, all the translation differences and all that stuff, to really dig to what is true. Now, the only reason why I would say that there's truth to it is because I apply it to my life and it changes my life. If it doesn't, then it's no good to me. And when someone, and this applies to anyone and any ideology, not even just Christianity, it could be Muslim, it could be Hindu, it could be political, it could be the Ageless Wisdom Teachings even, or Benjamin Creme's books or whatever. If you make it an ideology and don't do anything with it other than just believe it, what good has it done for you? Really? Has it really changed your life for the better? And Jesus said something that I do think is true that's still left in the Bible. A tree is known by its fruit. Does it produce the fruit that you want? You don't have to, gainsay or question anything. You just have to look at it and see for yourself, is that tree bearing some kind of fruit that I like or not? And you can do this with anybody in the media, because right now it's kind of hard to tell what is true, what is not true, what is left, what is right, what is up, what is down. And we really are in this sense of, and now with AI coming online, now it's going to make things even worse about whether there's any truth to it. The only thing you can do is look at it and go, is that, or apply it to your life and see if it does anything. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. So was Benjamin Creme demonic? Did he channel nefarious beings, and those kind of things? I understand your concern. I understand perhaps your even fear of this information based on that, because it is totally different from what most people grew up accepting to be true. I can't sit here and say that you're wrong, and I'm not going to. You have to discover it for yourself, whether there's any truth to this or not. That's why I always encourage everyone to investigate this information for yourself. And to be honest, I am actually modeling that after what I heard from Ben for decades. Every time he spoke in public, he always said that when he was talking about this information. He would say something to the effect of, this is the easiest job in the world. All I have to do is tell you. I don't have to try to convince you of anything. If you believe it, you believe it. There's truth to this. If you don't, you don't. And if you believe that there's truth to this, then it's for you to do something about it. He didn't have to try to convince you to do anything with it. It's up to you to do it. And to me, when I saw that approach, it took a lot of the pressure off. But if he was someone who was trying to get me to change my beliefs, trying to get me to believe him or follow him or, God forbid, give him money in that way, I would have been turned off a long time ago. And I've gone to churches my whole life. Maybe not every week, but I've gone enough. I know what they do in churches. And I gotta be honest with you, I've never once heard a pastor say that. Well, you can believe me or not. Jesus is the only true Son of God. I believe I believe he's the only true Son of God. But if you don't believe it, that is totally right up with you. No, what do they say? If you don't believe me, you are going to the worst place in the cosmos, hell. So if you're sitting there and you trust them on any level, you are going to try to believe them based on that fear. Ben never once said that. The only thing he said kind of remotely close to that is, if we as a people do not come together and start the principle of sharing, that's it. It's over. But I think that's true, because right now nobody trusts anybody. So your lack of trust against, for Ben, against the extraterrestrials or the space brothers, as I like to call them, or these masters, is because there's not any trust in the world. There's not any trust, individually, sometimes even amongst family, locally, statewide, nationally, regionally, whatever, and even globally amongst nations. There's no trust. And the more you go on the internet, the worse it becomes, because anybody can say anything and there's no evidence and I'm putting myself in the same boat. I don't have any evidence to back this up. That's why I always encourage you to look it up for yourself, see if there's any truth to it or not, and not make any claims that this is true. This is for you to decide, So that to me was the indication for myself that what Ben was, it gave me, I guess it didn't give me the sense that it was true, but it gave me the freedom to look at it for myself, to study it myself, to not feel any kind of pressure to do that or to buy a book. I just did it anyway, and then started reading it. Okay. And I didn't agree with it at first reading. I didn't agree with it at the second reading. It took me a while to kind of get used into it and read it. But the truth of the matter is that I have always longed for peace. I've always wanted humanity to rise above its situation and come together as a people. I see the world as our only planetary home, and if we don't stop destroying the environment, we won't have it for much longer. So it's going to take some kind of trust to be able to do this. And if you look in the world today, there's none. Now, Maitreya would say, and this is where I think to swing back to Jesus about what was said in the Bible, that's a truth, a tree is known by its fruit. The times that I saw Maitreya, and you can read you can read about other people's stories at Share International, but you can also hear my videos. I have a whole playlist. If you want to take the time to read it, cool. If you don't. There's no big deal. But the times that I saw Maitreya, he never once asked me to believe something different than I believed. He never once told me that Ben was right. He never once said he was Maitreya. He never once said anything. It just sat with me for however long he did, or stood next to me or whatever, and had a heart-to-heart conversation about something. And at some point, he dropped some science on me about something. And then he didn't say, you got to learn this. If you don't, it's going to be really bad. He never once said anything like that. And he never repeated himself. He just said it. He said, like, one of the things that I said, I never judge anyone on whether they're good or bad. I only notice the good things that they do. And it slipped right past me for years. I didn't really look at it, use it, absorb it, apply it to my life until much later. But when I did, it changed my life. But people, and my job is, I'm in retail, and I make an attempt to really be welcoming to people coming into my establishment where I work. And a lot of times I know their name, and I ask them what their name is, and every time I see them, I say their name. And I notice that people coming in will oftentimes look to see where I'm at and say, hey, Gary, how are you? And that is a direct result of me taking the time to know who they are, to see how they're doing, right? Now, if they had come in and I had told them to get the F out because I don't like them, I don't like the way they look, do you think they're going to come and look and smile and look for me? No, of course not. But yet we all do that. We all expect a different result from what we're doing. Jesus said, what you sow, so shall you reap. Another truth in the Bible. Now, the conversation about the truth about these masters working within the law of free will, it's not fragile to you. It's totally foreign to you and everybody else on this planet. So it's not just you, whoever you happen to be. None of us really know what it's like to live and conduct our lives not infringing upon other people's free will. We do it all the time. We do it thinking we are totally immune and having to do it with impunity most of the time. We don't even realize that our thoughts themselves create the world we live in. If we put out loving thoughts, we get love back. If we put out critical, hatred thoughts, we don't get love back. And then our lives become miserable because of it. It creates disease in our own body because of our thoughts. What we say does the same thing. What we do does the same thing. It builds the life that we live. Every single teacher, the Buddha, Krishna, Jesus, all taught the same truths. And they all taught that we were one. They all taught that what we put out, we get back. Jesus said, what you sow, shall you reap. Of course, couldn't be simpler. So simple that I've never heard them talk about that in church. Ever. The last time I went to church last week with my wife, I went to a very conservative Baptist church because that's what she is. And for the first time, he talked about reincarnation, but in a negative way. But that was the first time I ever heard the words reincarnation in a church after 50 years of life on this planet, going to churches from time to time. Never once heard it. It's right there in the texts of the Bible about reincarnation. Now, but we don't know what it's like to live free, not harm people. Because when you infringe upon free will, you harm people. These masters have learned to not do that. They're here to teach us how to live like that. Individually, as a group, as a nation, and even as a world. Everything in the world that we're seeing today, all the struggles, all the divisions, all the fear, all the lack of trust is all coming from us. All the environmental problems and the weather problems and the fires and the earthquakes and the floods are all coming from us. We are generating it. We don't think that we do, but every single time we put out these thoughts, we get something back. Ben used to say, you don't realize how far out your thoughts go before they come back to you, how much harm it does to not only other people, but the entire world before it comes back to you in that harm, if it's a harmful thought. But here's the other thing. If you put out love, joy, creative thoughts, they do the same thing, but in the opposite side of the coin. You put out love, it sends love out. You put out hope, it sends hope far into the world. It touches so many people you don't even realize who they touch. It infects you. Hope infects you just as fear does. And people look at life through nothing but fear. That's why we have the problems that we have. But the question that I would ask, because I ask the same question to myself, is who am I? Not who am I as Gary, or who am I to even say such things, but who am I really? All the concerns and all the fears that people have about these masters, about Jesus, whether he is the only true Son of God, whether these masters are benevolent, whether these masters live within the law of cause and effect, or whatever, boil down to who we really are as people. Are we separate from each other? Are we one family? Are we one? Is there nothing but unity in the entire cosmos? Are we truly divine in who we are? Because these masters are nothing but who we are in potential. To me, it cheapens Jesus to think he's the only true Son of God. That if I believe in him and give money to the church and tie it to the church and go to the church every Sunday, that I can be whatever I want to be. I can say whatever I want to say. I can be just as harmful to people in my life. All I have to do is believe in Jesus, and I go to some place for all eternity, which sounds like it actually is not that fun a place, to be honest with you. You know, just as, dare I say, hell is not a really fun place. To me, you know, you look at, you know, I thought about what I would say to this. You know, from when I started, and I'm talking about myself, and I'm sorry, but when I started applying the truths that I got from reading from Ben Zimmerman Creme's master, from Ben himself, from the times that I met Maitreya, my life is totally different. I see life totally different than I did 25, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, for the better. My life is better. I have more joy in my life. You know, I am not afraid to talk to people. I'm not afraid to put out, you know, what I think and all that kind of stuff, and try. And I also have strived my whole life to, you know, since I've heard about this information, to live a good life and live harmlessly and stuff like this. But I would hate for it to end. And then that's it. It suck. You know what I'm saying? But it doesn't end. In reality, it doesn't. And then I'll come back and go through the process again on a higher rung of the ladder. And we all do. And you can see the growth in your own life. And do you want it to truly just end when you die? Because, you know, the person itself, the body dies when we die. But the divine inner part of us, that divine soul, is there for all eternity. Now, the difference between them and us is, and even between our space brothers who come and help us, is they know who they are. Nobody has to tell them who they are. They already know it. They live their life accordingly. And by doing that, they live a totally different life than you and I live. And part of that life that they live, that richness that they've experienced, they share with other people. They help other people. These masters do the same thing. These beings that come here from other planets are here on a spiritual mission to help us. We fear them because we don't know who we are or why they're here. We listen and trust people that we probably shouldn't be listening to and trusting. And the only evidence that I need to prove what I'm saying about these UFOs, I believe they exist because I've seen them, but you might not, but let's say you did. And a lot of people have seen them and had very scary thoughts about them. But my question is, if my proof is an evidence of whether they're harmless or harmful, is a question. Why have they not taken this over yet? You know what I'm saying? Why? If they were really here to do that, why have they done it already? Well, the answer is the truth of who they are. They are not here to take us over. We have nothing to fear from them. We have nothing to fear from these masters, but it's okay to have concerns. It truly is okay. Just if you want to, you know, I'm not asking you to change your beliefs in what you believe about Jesus or about the church or even about what these guys, John Jordan and this other guy, Heiser or Miser or whatever his guy's name is. I turned off the where I was reading and it just kind of went off script. But anyway, if you believe what they believe it. If it adds joy to your life and create, you know, and love to your life, then by all means follow what they say. If it doesn't, if you find yourself being more fearful, more untrusting of people, getting stuck in your own life, being obsessed about knowing more about it, and it eats you, kind of eats at your core a little bit, then it might not be what you want to do. If it, like I said, if it brings you hope, brings you joy, then I would say go for it, and by all means study it. And I know a lot of people who believe what they are hearing in church, and it gives them a tremendous amount of joy. And I don't have any qualms with them. I don't try to get them to change their beliefs. Nothing. You know what I'm saying? But they're few and far between, because most people who read the Bible read it from a standpoint of ideology, but also from fear. Just as, to me, believing the Bible is the gospel truth cheapens it. Just as reading Revelation through the eyes of fear cheapens what John was talking about, because that's not what he was talking about. The Revelation is really about the hope of humanity, actually, not about the ending of all life on the planet and all that stuff. It's just been misinterpreted by people who are looking at it through fear. So we all have within our hands a choice. We either live life with fear and spread it just like you would any other disease, but we also have the choice in another hand to spread hope and love and creativity, and that does the exact same thing for the people around us. And you get a different result when you do it. If Maitreya was nefarious, if he was one of these demons in the Bible, why is what he said to me changed my life and made me a more loving, more happy person, more joyful in any way, more at peace, everything? If you read that, I don't even know the scripture, what book in the Bible, it doesn't matter. But anyway, when they were accusing Jesus of being a demon, what did he say? Well, if I'm a demon, why am I casting out demons? You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing. If Maitreya is a demon, why is he talking about peace? Why is he talking about the path to peace? The need to share. What is wrong with ending hunger? Why is that an evil? What would that do for the world if we shared the resources of the world and ended hunger at a stroke? What would that do? Would that be an evil thing? Or would that be something that we should have done decades ago? Would it maybe possibly ease the tensions in the world? Would it, I'll tell you what it will do. It's what the poet, the Spanish poet Federico Lorca said. We can't imagine the spiritual explosion of joy that would happen all around the world if we just ended hunger. Close your eyes and think about it. What would life be like if nobody starved to death in a world of plenty? What would that do? We would still be living with some of the other problems, but it would be a huge load off of everybody's shoulder if we just did that. We have enough food. We have the ability to transport it. We have the ability to serve it to people. We just have to have the will to do it. So, anyway, I really, really appreciate your questions, young knowledge seeker. Hopefully this has helped in your seeking of knowledge and truth. I love you guys. You guys have a great rest of your day, and it was good to put up another video like this. You guys take care. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.